E-invoicing, generally, as we talked about, is to ensure that at the tip of our finger, we're able to say what economic activities are happening in Nigeria. It's not just for tax purpose. It's also part of broader national planning scheme, whereby the government wants to be able to know the performance in each sector of the economy, so that when time for fiscal planning comes, we have robust data to speak to when government makes policies.
Simply put, an e-invoice is a digital representation of a transaction between a supplier and a buyer. It contains essential details such as supplier and buyer information, item descriptions, quantities, prices, applicable taxes, and total amounts.
It was Professor Dotun Phillips of blessed memory who always insisted on a distinction between optimum revenue generation and maximum revenue generation. In recent time, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, is also on record to have famously espoused the intention of his government to tax the fruit and not the seed. All over the world, tax authorities strive in this direction to collect all that is collectible without overburdening the tax-paying public and ensuring that leakages are minimized, if not totally eliminated. This is where electronic invoicing comes into the picture. In its bid to contribute to this laudable effort and in keeping with its mandate, the Chartered Institute of Taxation of Nigeria collaborated with the Nigeria Revenue Service to organize a workshop on e-invoicing and the new tax law, with the theme Unlocking Business Value with the NRS E-Invoicing Merchant Buyer Solution, Objective, Compliance and Benefits. The workshop was held in Lagos on Thursday, February 12, 2026. Dr. Ruth Adimola is the chairman of the ICT committee of the CITN.
The era of new tax laws and reforms in Nigeria is no longer a matter of the future. It is already here with us. The tax ecosystem is evolving, and today's workshop is a clear demonstration of our collective commitment to embracing innovation, strengthening compliance and modernizing tax administration in Nigeria. The CITN is working closely with the Nigeria Revenue Service to support the growth of the digital economy and to facilitate the phased implementation of e-invoicing, with the ultimate goal of enhancing efficiency, transparency, and effectiveness in Nigeria tax system.
What is an e-invoice?
Simply put, an e-invoice is a digital representation of a transaction between a supplier and a buyer. It contains essential details such as supplier and buyer information, item descriptions, quantities, prices, applicable taxes, and total amounts. It replaces traditional paper invoices and multiple electronic formats such as invoices, credit notes, and debit notes. The e-invoicing system is an innovative solution designed to streamline invoicing processes while ensuring compliance with global standards and international best practices. Built on a robust framework, it sets a new benchmark for efficiency, security, and reliability in managing fiscal and transactional activities in Nigeria. It enables real-time digital reporting of business-to-business and business-to-customer transactions directly to tax authorities such as NRS through a secure and structured platform. E-invoicing helps to reduce tax evasion and significantly improves audit efficiency. It operates on structured data formats such as XML, which integrates seamlessly into accounting systems. Under the real-time validation or clearance model, invoices are transmitted to the tax authorities portal, such as NIRS, through a secure and structured platform.
What are the expected gains of e-invoicing?
The overarching objective of this system is to enhance tax transparency. In essence, the CITN is proud to be at the forefront of sensitizing corporate organizations and professionals on this critical development. We have the human capacity, we have the digital infrastructure and intellectual resources to provide leadership in this area.
Dr. Yemi Sani, Chairman, Membership and Professional Conduct Committee of the CITN, stood in for the 17th President of the CITN, Mr. Innocent Ohagwa.
This engagement could not have come at a more auspicious moment than now, as Nigeria navigates a new era of tax reforms. It has become imperative in the overall national interest for all of us to embrace the 4 tax laws recently enacted by the National Assembly and graciously assented by Mr. President and Commander-in-Chief of Armed Forces of Nigeria, Mr. Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR. As strategic institutions, we must ensure that systems and tools that will give support to effective implementation of these tax laws are well understood, accessible, and efficiently deployed. Today's event speaks directly to that objective, with particular emphasis on electronic invoicing and related technology. This collaboration with the Nigerian Revenue Service, therefore, forms part of our broader national effort to demystify the provisions of the new Tax Reform Act, promote voluntary compliance, and strengthen the overall tax ecosystem in Nigeria. The NRS e-invoicing merchant buyer solution sits at the very heart of the current reform effort. It represents a decisive shift from reactive enforcement to proactive compliance, and from manual reporting to real-time data integrity. For businesses, it offers efficiency, certainty, and reduced compliance risk. For government, it provides credible data, improved revenue assurance, and a stronger foundation for informed policy planning. And for the economy as a whole, it strengthens the trust, the valuable currency of any progressive and credible tax system.
Now to the business at hand. The reason for the gathering. Mr. Bamishom Guam, a senior manager, Tax Automation Department, Nigeria Revenue Service, spoke on behalf of the Nigeria Revenue Service.
We are here today to look at unlocking business value with the merchant buyer solution. And I appreciate the Institute for organizing this. We'll try as much as possible to make it practical, because it is a topic that in this 2026, it will require deliberate action by businesses and also by the tax authority to ensure that we get it from the word go. One thing about e-invoicing is it's actually a global practice now all over the world. Countries are onboarding or digitizing their business processes for seamless connectivity, unlike the way it were before. And Nigeria will not be left out in this digital space. So today we'll be looking at unlocking business value with the merchant buyer solution. The merchant buyer solution is the NRS e-invoicing solution that has been deployed to actually handle the Nigeria e-invoicing landscape. One thing about e-invoicing is that it's not an NRS or Nigeria Revenue Service project alone. It's actually a national project that is being implemented by cohorts of so many departments, so many agencies that are involved. However, the process is being driven by the Nigeria Revenue Service, being the people authority in Nigeria. So, to begin with, e-invoicing is not actually new, and it's not going to disrupt any of our businesses. However, it is aimed at enhancing what businesses do in Nigeria and also unlocking Nigerian economy to global best practices. So, we'll look at where we were before to where we are going. First and foremost, we are transiting from the manual process to the digital or electronic process of doing business in Nigeria. So when we look at it, from where we are coming, basically, either for tax or for business purposes, most of our invoicing processes in Nigeria is manual. When you want to buy anything or when you want to procure goods and services, you'd see that there are adverts, there are invoices, there are local purchase orders that are issued, but most of these things are done manually before now. However, with the coming of the digital era, we will not be left out. We know a lot of businesses have actually digitized their businesses, but it's just an insignificant percentage. We know the business process, we have the 2080. The 20% of the businesses in Nigeria now that have automated their processes are just few, which is the large taxpayers. And even amongst the large taxpayers, there are some that still procure goods and services through open space. So, we are moving from the manual process to the digital era, where businesses are initiated electronically, consummated electronically, and payments are also made electronically. Meaning, in every segment of the procurement process for goods and services, there is a digital footprint that can be followed. And this, we know, brings about data transparency, meaning whenever a source of truth, all we need to do is to evaluate or review the systems that these business processes were passed through. It also brings about structured compliance. In essence, the e-invoicing regime is going to standardize invoices originating from Nigeria. So there are fields that are mandatory that any company that is issuing any invoice from Nigeria, which has passed through the e-invoicing platform, they will have similar, if not the same, texture or features that would be seen, apart from the customization that is allowed for branding purposes, where your business name, your business address, your business logo, but when you go through the fields that are in the invoice, they would be similar to one another. So, e-invoice is actually bringing about that structured compliance. So when I see any invoice from Nigeria, there are key areas that I'm expected to see that are captured in that particular invoice. Then for data transparency, we know data is everything. Data is life. So practically, the era of non-availability of data in order to make informed decisions, either for national planning, business planning, that era has passed. Because businesses and nations of the world are relying on data to formulate policies and also create opportunities for their people. So, data centricity now would drive the process of national planning, national economic or fiscal planning, and also business decisions, so that we don't actually take decisions that will be inimical to businesses in Nigeria. Before now, if you were to do any business, either within the country or across the border, you would have to find a way on how you can send out your invoice to your customers, on how to transmit it either via email or via courier. And that manual process actually was a big challenge, whereby your invoices are not delivered on time or they are tampered with en route. If you're sending it via email, we have the business email compromise systems, whereby your email is cloned and your documents are also cloned and sent across. And your customer might not be able to know that something has actually happened. So even send your invoices via email is not secure. That was an era that we were in. And a lot of businesses actually had that. For those that are tax practitioners here, whenever time or tax season comes around, you see people moving with big bags, invoices, and other documents just to justify a single line of transaction. And so copy those documents or copies of the hard copies of that documents to the tax office involves costs, money. And we also had high administrative overhead resulting from manual reconciliation. For those that render monthly returns for VAT, or you're a tax manager, when the finance department are done with whatever they are doing, the biggest challenge that a tax manager has is to reconcile the figures. Because you have 21 days, that's for VAT, to reconcile your figures and file your returns. And imagine if you're doing this by gathering pieces of documents from different vendors in order to know your output VAT and your input VAT, then reconcile and know the amount payable or claimable as a refund. So that also, it's a very big headache. Then, which often result from discrepancies in VAT figures. And these discrepancies, sometimes you have to bear the costs if you can't be able to reconcile the figure before 21 days after the transaction. Then we have increase the risk and costs associated with NRS audits. For the Nigeria Revenue Service, one key challenge that we have is non-availability of audit traces, because audit is all about documentation. Whenever we cannot have access to those documents, it makes it difficult, and it makes the audit very subjective. Meaning, whenever we cannot obtain the documents that we need or to rely on to make audit decisions, then we are left to make a difficult decision that might not be favorable even to the taxpayer. So, these are part of the key issues that people were passing through in the manual process. Then we have missing invoices or missing transactions, just as we have issues of missing traders in the digital era today, where invoices cannot be found as at the time of audit or as at the time of filing or compliance. Because manual documents can go missing in so many instances. It can be destroyed by natural disaster. I remember in 2014 when there was flood in Nigeria, most companies in the Niger Delta were flooded, and most of their documents were destroyed. Even those ones that were stored on system, that is independent system that don't have backup in the cloud. So if you don't have such backups on your system, Once that system is submerged, the whole of the data that is available in that system is gone. So these are some of the issues that necessitated the movement or transition from manual businesses to automated processes.
Mr. Mbami also spoke on the benefits of the e-invoicing solution.
So, what are the advantages of the digital era today? For businesses and also for tax administration or for fiscal planning as a nation. We have real-time business. Government wants to be part of businesses or economic activity that is happening in Nigeria. More often than not, when you see government policies coming out and the result doesn't turn out with the intended outcome that the government desire, it's not because those who made those policies actually made a mistake. It's just that the data that they had as at the time of making those policies were faulty. And any decision you make based on faulty data, definitely you get faulty result. So you see that you're getting that you never imagined. So, but with automation, you will actually have real-time visibility to data that whatever decision you come up with is based data that you rely on, which is accessible to almost a stakeholder. We have accurate reporting, particularly for VAT. At every point in time, when invoices are passed through the digital space in the e-invoicing ecosystem, it is very simple to reconcile output VAT and input VAT. Because one thing about VAT is another customer's input VAT is another customer's output VAT. And as both of you are reporting these transactions, it's showing the details. You don't need to follow up with a customer for anything, because if he has reported his sales, you that bought from him would automatically claim it as an input. And that's how the chain of transaction flows. So at the end of the month, you have little or nothing to do, because the figures or the data will speak for itself. So it makes reporting accurate. It also enhances fraud prevention, because one thing about fraud is it can only be prevented. And if you are in an ecosystem where it's digitized, even if fraud happens, it's very easy to detect it, because there's no system that is actually watertight proof against fraud. Because fraud is not carried out by the systems. Fraud is carried out by actors, by individuals within the ecosystem. And of a truth, it takes serious control to be put in place, internal control, in order to prevent fraud or minimize it. But once, if you have a system that people know that even if they succeed in executing their fraudulent schemes, they know that there are digital traces that would be followed to find out who did what. That alone is a deterrent for people to do what they are expected to do without anyone checkmating them, because they know there is a system that will show who did what at every point in time. So e-invoicing brings about fraud prevention. Then we have reliable data for planning. Because one thing about success is that once you plan adequately and properly, success is inevitable. But when you don't plan, it is often fate that you have planned to fail.
Mr. Mbami went on to tie in the implication of electronic invoicing to the newly introduced tax reforms.
For those that are aware about the tax reform that has just happened, before now, deployment of electronic devices and also electronic solution in tax administration was to a certain limit. But with the passage of the Nigeria Tax Act and the Nigeria Tax Administration Act in 2025, that has changed everything. And we need to have that at the back of our mind. When you look at section 153 of the Nigerian Tax Act to 158, which is talking about the electronic fiscal device, particularly about VAT, it simply means that the Nigeria Revenue Service has full power now to deploy proprietary technology and technological devices for tax administration. So how can I fit in as a professional? And how can I fit in as business? Because the e-invoicing that we're talking about is going to work on an ecosystem that is built on technology. And anyone that is not familiar with technology or knows what to do per time to ensure compliance with the relevant tax acts might be contravening compliance requirements. Familiar with the new tax reform, if there is anything that the tax reform frowns at seriously, is non-compliance. I know us have seen some of the fallouts from the implementation of the tax acts when it relates to compliance. Non-compliance in the Nigerian Tax Act and the Nigerian Act, it is sanctioned in such a way that the best way to stay safe in doing business in Nigeria is compliance. Because the cost of non-compliance has been sanctioned so much that if you don't comply, it might actually affect your business negatively. However, for those who choose to comply, they have little or nothing to lose at the end of the day. So, from the FRS Establishment Act, when you look at section 23, it was there that it was inserted that we can deploy proprietary technology for tax administration only. And what does that mean? It means if you're doing your business, we don't care whether you deploy technology to do your business or not. But we, as revenue authority, that section gave us right to move from paper-based tax administration to the use of what? Digital tools to administer taxes that are collectible by the Nigerian government. Then the finance enhanced that we can actually plug into your proprietary technology that you use for your business in order to pick tax data only. And that happened in 2020 when the 2019 Finance Act was passed. Then the VAT modification orders and regulations were also there in order to enhance the deployment technology for the administration of value-added tax in particular. That was the period that we have the VAT automation process, where some merchants and businesses and some sectors like hotel, like supermarkets were automated, and their VAT returns were actually being processed via the VAT automation vendors. Then finally, we moved to the NRS and Nigeria Tax Administration Act. Section 158 clearly says we can deploy a fiscal electronic device in order to ensure compliance with VAT reporting. And it can be a device, it can be a software, it can be a platform. So whichever one the revenue service chooses to use, it is fine. Currently, e-invoicing has gone live, and that's why we are here. We want people to understand what e-invoicing is all about.
Yes, electronic invoicing is live. Mr. Mbami proceeded to explain what e-invoicing is all about. And that is our takeoff point on the next episode, still on e-invoicing. But before then, here is Mr. Mbami in an interview. We had e-receipts, ETCC and all the E's. But now we have E-Invoice. I want you to really give us like an overview of what really is this E-Invoice and what is the significance to both the NRS and the taxpayer.
Okay. Actually, you just captured the question. If I'll qualify it, I would say you have just brought up the issue of a digital transformation movement as a service from FIRS. Now, NRS, it has been a tough one, but a fruitful one, simplifying tax compliance for our taxpayers and making tax business quite easy. From the era of digital e-receipts, ETCC, now we're on e-invoicing. E-invoicing actually deals with the business directly, meaning we are bringing on board to automate the process of information exchange between the business and the government, because e-invoicing is not just for NRS or Nigeria Revenue Service. It's actually a nationwide project that government is embarking on, because it's a global standard whereby government wants to know all economic activities that are happening in country, that will help them come up with policies and fiscal policies that will guide economic development in Nigeria. So e-invoicing generally is issuance or exchange of information in digital form, raw digital form, instead of manual reporting at intervals. That's just summarized in a way.
Okay, now, sorry to take you back. I remember then that NRS could actually plug into the system of some supermarkets, some organizations. Is that kind of applicable to this e-invoicing as well?
Yes, when you look at it that way, basically what you're talking about is VAT automation, because that was started basically just for VAT purposes, and it was for selected businesses and sectors. But when it comes to e-invoicing, it's over and beyond VAT alone. E-invoice is tracking the general economic activity in country. For those ones that are issuing invoice out, that is account receivable or account payable, we want to see the e-invoice serve as source of either expenditure or income. So whether the products or goods or services are VATable or not, e-invoicing is to show that this transaction or this revenue has been earned or these expenses has been incurred. So that when it comes for tax purposes, we would be able to grant you relief for whatever expenses that is allowed. And also, when it comes to economic planning, we'll know the sectors of the economy that are doing well and the ones that are not doing well. Thereby, when government is granting relief or concessions in the economy, they will know which sector they should focus on to ensure that indeed the economy is helped or pushed to the level that is expected in the country.
For the taxpayer, of what benefit would this e-invoicing be?
Okay, for the taxpayer, it's actually in multi-dimensions. First and foremost, it's going to formalize their business and streamline it with international standards. Thereby, any invoice issued in Nigeria can be honored anywhere in the world. Secondly, it also gives them opportunity for invoice financing. For taxpayers or businesses that are in need of finances to actually do business, any invoice that is issued via the e-invoicing system that has been issued with invoice reference number can be tendered at any financial institution to seek or sought for financing so that that business crystallizes. Before now, a lot of people have bright ideas or have business opportunities that they would do. And when you approach the bank or any financial institution, they are very careful not to delve into another issue. But with e-invoicing, any invoice that is issued and is issued with an invoice reference number can actually be financed by any finance company. And thirdly, it also helps to actually minimize or prevent fraud. We have seen people's emails being compromised, which is often regarded as a business email compromise systems. But with e-invoicing, whosoever issues you an invoice for goods and services, you can actually verify to know that it's from the right source, and you can make payment to the details that are contained therein. So it does a lot for businesses. Thank you.
So how would this work in line with the Tax Pro Max?
While for the Tax Pro Max, it's not actually only for the Tax Pro Max or the tax NRS itself, it's for all the tax authorities in Nigeria. And as you know, Nigeria runs a fragmented tax administration system whereby the national and the subnational also have taxing right on both individuals and companies. So the e-invoicing system actually will be feeding automatically the tax administration system at the different levels. For the state internal revenue service, is going to feed them with expenses that relates to personnel expenses for payee. Then at the federal, you'll be feeding with value-added tax, with withholding tax, then company income tax. So generally, it's going to simplify tax administration by automating the process. So when you come to file as a company or as a business, your filing would already be, your account will be pre-filed with the transactions that have been reported on the e-invoicing, either as revenue or as expenses that you can claim relief for. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
You're welcome.
E-invoicing is live. Embrace it, use it, and be a part of the new Nigeria. Join us next episode for more on this new groundbreaking solution.